the greatest national discourse, which is obviously about health and COVID and where we go next now that the vaccines are coming. We'll have on the minister for the first 40 minutes of the show, and then we'll switch over to Mr. Arsene Picard, the UDP mayoral candidate. But thanks for tuning in, and let's jump right into it. Minister, first of all, you spoke in the National Assembly on Friday about the extraordinary reversal in numbers. And we see it every night, the new figures coming out. And while we are very aware people are dying of COVID, and so there is nothing to celebrate when people are dying, I'm very aware of that. But COVID is a management issue. And by all outward indications, you all are managing COVID. Explain to me what you all see as the science behind really bringing down these new daily infections to consistently under 10, under 5, and daily infectivity rates of under 5%.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Jules. Thank you for having me on tonight. Good night, Belize, and a special good night to the good folks out in Kai on Earth.
Indeed.
Indeed, you know. So Jules, I think there has been a combination of factors that have led to this. I think primarily the fact that we expanded testing throughout the country and isolating the cases that we found has contributed greatly to the reduction in numbers. The education campaign, educating the Belizean public on how this virus spreads and the effect it has had on all of us, I think was also instrumental, Jules. And also, I believe the fact that we implemented stringent measures to restrain and to kind of limit human interaction, right? As you know, this virus is spread primarily through human contact and human interaction. And so I think a combination of those three things have led us to where we are today.
Now, when you look at it, the real dynamic in there is running the tests. You know, for a long time, tests were not readily accessible, and I know you all have made a campaign to make those tests available directly in communities. Speak to me about that in terms of the outlay of manpower, the outlay of resources, the availability of tests, the restocking of tests, everything to get those tests into the communities and to make people come out.
Yeah, I think, Jules, before we move to that point, though, I think it is important to underscore where we really are in terms of the positivity rate and the drastic fall we've seen in the numbers. When we started out in November, the rate of infection was about 6%. In late January, it has fallen to 1.1%. And I think that is a significant improvement for us as a country, no? We have seen where the numbers have fallen from, when I took office, we were averaging anywhere between 182 to 185 cases a day. Now we're down to 20-something cases per day. And so the difference has been dramatic. The difference has been dramatic. The positivity rate, Jules, was somewhere in the 20% range in November when we took over. It is now down to an average of 4.5 on a daily basis. And so the improvement has been really, really dramatic. And we're cautiously optimistic. We know that this virus is uncertain, it is unpredictable in many ways. And we know that if people put their guard down, if people do not continue to adhere to the public health measures that we've implemented, we can very well go back to where we were, right?
And just for the avoidance of doubt, we are observing the social distance requirements here. We have the distance, and we have a glass partition as well.
Yes.
And the minister has on his face mask. And guys, I think we have some of the graphics in there that show the drastic fall in that infectivity rate. Mm-hmm. And we were saying that it's about the tests, about taking the tests out to people and having the supplies available. For a long time, we felt that there was, that these tests would be in short supply, or that we had a finite supply and we had to manage it very judiciously.
Right.
But you guys have taken a different approach.
Yes, we took a completely different approach, and we understood the World Health prescription to be test, and isolate, right? And so that is what we took on when we took office. We started on a widespread, wide-based testing. We started using the rapid test. In many instances, that was the first, that was the breakthrough for us. When we came into office, Jules, people were waiting sometimes up to 30 days to get back a test result. In many instances, many of them had recovered, right? Without knowing what they had. And so I am very happy to say that that number is now down to 24 hours for a PCR result. The rapid test we're using, the SD biosensor, gives you a result within half an hour. And we now have those in all of our hospitals, both our regional and our community hospitals. And so people are able to get their rapid test results very quickly now. We've introduced, in addition to our hospitals testing sites, we have mobile testing sites who have been going and are still going throughout the country, village to village, testing people.
Now, you see what operationalized that. You said you have the mobile testing sites. There are people with specialized deployment.
Yes.
Now, the conversation changes to vaccines.
Yes.
And my challenge to you is, okay, the vaccines are coming early April.
Right.
But then, are people being trained at the public health facilities to administer these vaccines? Are people being employed to engage in this widespread campaign that has to go into those communities?
Yes. So vaccines are not new to our country. This is not the first time that we're going to be vaccinating en masse. And so we have many of our doctors and nurses who are very qualified to undertake these vaccinations. But we're not limiting ourselves. We are expanding our human resource so that when the vaccines do come into the country, we're going to have teams throughout the country, and we're going to have vaccination sites throughout the country so that whichever district you're in, you'll be able to access the vaccines. And so the recruitment is ongoing, and preparing for the vaccine when they arrive, that is all part of the process, and all of that is ongoing.
No, but in terms of the actual, we saw they arrived in Barbados today, 100,000 that they got from the Indians.
Right.
Yeah?
I believe it's Baharat.
Oh, really? Okay.
I believe it's the Baharat.
So explain to me, you know, people see that and they see a sister country with pretty much a little smaller population than ours.
Right. Yeah.
Why aren't we able to get into the front of the queue like the Barbadians?
Right. Well, I think part of what has happened, Jules, is that there was significant delay on behalf of the previous administration in reaching out and trying to have bilateral agreements with these companies and with these countries. Many countries started way back in August and September to have bilateral relationships and to try and source from other sources other than the COVAX facility these vaccinations, right? When we got into office in November, we immediately started reaching out. We've reached out to AstraZeneca, we've reached out to Moderna, we've reached out to the Indian government. And so we are now at that process, we're now in that process. Unfortunately, the previous administration did not see the wisdom in trying to have bilateral agreements.
Now, explain to me, you spoke in the House of Representatives on Friday about the Sputnik vaccine.
Right.
There are mixed thoughts about that because, you know, some people feel that, well, I want the Oxford AstraZeneca one because that is a more European or international standard, while the Sputnik has this has a bit of a taint around it. And some people feel that, well, special people will get AstraZeneca and then I go end up with the Sputnik. Explain to me how
I don't think that is the case. That is certainly not the case. So let us try and put some perspective here. We as a government and as a country have entered into an agreement with the COVAX facilities, right? And we have purchased 280,000 vaccines through them. We understand that that will be the AstraZeneca vaccination, and we're expecting 100,000 of those doses at the end of the first quarter of this year. That's the expectation. All right. Mm-hmm. We've been told that we're going to get an initial shipment of 35,000 vaccines to be followed by about another 70,000 thereafter, all right? And so we are expecting that the first vaccinations to come into the country will be the AstraZeneca vaccinations, right?
Right. But when one looks at the entire situation, I'm saying that administering 120,000 vaccines, 2 doses of 60,000, is not as simple as having the inoculation campaign that accompanies regular childbirths, that sort of thing. It requires much more mobilization and planning.
Yeah.
My point is the Ministry of Health up to it?
Absolutely, Jules. We have a team that is spearheading this entire effort at the Ministry of Health. Dr. Baer, who is with us, is our focal point for the vaccinations, and she is part of the team that is organizing the administration of these vaccines when we do come into country. And as I said, we're expanding in terms of human resource to make sure we have enough personnel to administer these vaccines. And they're also going through the process of identifying the different sectors of the community who will be vaccinated, who will go first, second, third, fourth, and so on. And so this is an ongoing exercise, and I can tell you that a lot of guidance has been had through PAHO to assist us in this process.
No, when one looks at the actual COVID all over the world, has created enterprise around it. Supplying of tests, supplying of PPEs, supplying of vaccines is an industry.
Absolutely.
And all over the world, people are, and it's nothing illegal about it, are making a profit on this. My question is, and certainly you have or may have heard these charges, that those close to you or close to the ministry have their own stake in these enterprises. That because so much can happen, so much economic activity can happen surrounding COVID, that certain preferred people are able to get into that inside track and get a leg up on the competition in providing certain service or the restocking of tests, the acquisition of tens of thousands of tests, that sort of thing. Has this happened?
Well, you know, Jules, this is always a rumor and surrounding this whole ministry, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And when you look at what has happened, and I'll tell you this, and I'll be very frank with you, what we found at the ministry has caused us a lot of concern, and we are actively investigating a lot of what had transpired under the previous administration with exactly the supply of medication and other supplies to the Ministry of Health.
Well,
I mean,
pharmaceuticals has been a racket in the Ministry of Health, to my knowledge, for many, many years, under successive administrations, I believe, and there's a reason for this. Mm-hmm. There's money to be made, and friends need to make money. It's not illegal to make money.
Yeah.
So my question is, if this racket has persisted for a generation, let's say, why should it stop now? Why has it stopped now? I don't see how it can, if the inertia of public affairs dictates that certain private people who are friends or family or associates or supporters or funders, they must eat.
Yeah, well, you know, the fact of the matter is that every single purchase we have made has gone through the legal process as required by the Finance and Audit Act. Every contract that this current administration has signed through the Ministry of Health has gone through the Financial Secretary and through the Contractor General to make sure that whatever is being supplied is coming from a reliable source and it is the quality that the ministry expects to have. And so we have been following that line to a T.
Have you been able to follow it though? Because we know that speed is needed. You need to get things quickly. And when speed is needed, corners may have to be cut. Well, that you can't get the Contractor General or you can't wait for certain protocols to be enacted.
No. I can tell you that it takes about a month to get any of these things from start to finish approved. And every single contract that has gone through my ministry, or since the time I have been there, has been through the hands of the Contractor General. Definitely.
Minister, would you be prepared to make the kind of commitment that no minister has made in the past, which is to make public all the contracts for supplies of pharmaceuticals, whether they be COVID-related or not, since we know this, and you know this firsthand, you're saying, has been a racket in the past.
Well,
the only way to ensure transparency is to make it public.
Well, I think the public has a right to know, Jules. These are public funds. These are not personal funds that we're spending. And I think that the only way we can change what has happened in the past is by exposing it and making sure that we put into place checks and balances to make sure it doesn't happen again. And so it is important to be able to reveal these things to the public.
Is it true that there were supplies, pharmaceutical supplies, which a ministry had paid for back in 2019, as far back as 2019, but have not received any material value for, money paid with no goods received?
We're reviewing all of this, Jules, and I will be honest and tell you that we've had to write to some of the suppliers and to indicate certain things to them. And so I don't want to necessarily deny or accept, but these are things we're looking at, and there were many irregularities, and we're trying to correct these things.
Uncut. My first guest is Minister of Health, Michelle Shabat. When we come back, we will ask the uncut question of when we're going to roll out national NHI. We'll take a break now, folks. Join us back here in a few minutes. Okay, good night everyone, and welcome back to Uncut. For those of you just joining us on Facebook, we want to apologize. I know that the heavens almost fell that we weren't streaming live. It was just a technical orientation that we had in there, but it straightened out, and the whole show will be available tonight on Facebook. But you just missed the first segment where we spoke about a number of important subjects, but one of them we have to revisit, which minister is the Sputnik vaccine. I had asked you about it, but it wasn't clear who will receive this vaccine and how will it be determined, because there is some public pushback against that.
I don't know that there's been a public pushback. Actually, from the comments I've seen, there are many persons who are receptive to the Sputnik vaccine. And if you look at what's happening worldwide with it, it is one of the top vaccinations at this time. And I'll tell you, if it were that the Sputnik would be the first vaccination to come into the country, I would certainly be lining up to get it. Absolutely. I think it is important for all of us to get vaccinated. And whether it be Sputnik or whether it be AstraZeneca, I think it is important. It is important.
Speak to me, if you can, about the efficacy of the AstraZeneca and the Sputnik against the this South African strain, I believe it's B135.1.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's been some recent documentaries on the AstraZeneca, and I believe South Africa had suspended its administration because what has happened is that the AstraZeneca is not as effective against the South African strain. However, the World Health Organization today issued recommendations that it should still be used regardless, right? Even if you have the variant in the country, you should still apply it. I guess having some coverage is better than having no coverage at all.
When will we know what variant we have in the country?
Well, we have teamed up with Baylor University, and we have sent them over 100 swabs for them to test for us, and we're awaiting those results.
Okay, so now you spoke about the third wave. Do you have any idea where it may come from geographically and how it can be stemmed before it expands?
It's a very difficult question because, as you know, the variant strains are already in the United States and in Mexico. And so it can come from any of these regions. And I think for us as a people, it is important for us to continue to adhere to the public health measures that are currently in place. And so I think that is the way that we're going to stem the spread.
Now, one of the things that you discussed is that you believe that there's been a fundamental shift in human behavior, in social behavior, in how people are acting. And you tie that to a single index event. Explain to me your theory of when people really woke up to how immediate and present the threat is.
Yeah, immediate and present danger. And I think that when we had the twin doctors pass, I think for us that was a seminal moment in this country. I think that highlighted the danger of this virus that we're facing as a country. And it is for us at that point that we started to see some dramatic changes in people's attitude. I think people understood finally that it is their lives that are at stake. And people understood how important it is to take personal responsibility for your health and for your livelihood. And although we did, and we continue to see some people flouting the public health measures, on a whole as a people, I believe we have now understood the importance of it, and the majority of us are adhering to those public health measures. And I go back to where we started, which is in the lowering of the numbers that we're now seeing.
Now, a big part of this entire picture is primary health care. You know, once we're talking about vaccines and reaching out to the people, it's about going back to the clinics. But a lot of those clinics have had their funding cut. And NHI's funding has been cut. All this happened not necessarily under you, just happened as a part of the entire COVID crisis, right?
Well, this was a 40% cut instituted by the previous administration.
Indeed.
So.
And we know what happened to them. The question to you now is, when are you going to reinstate it? Will it be reinstated in the new budget?
Jules, I want to say this very clearly. This government understands the need to have proper healthcare in this country. And healthcare is a priority for this government, for this John Bressenio-led government, Jules. And I do believe that we will be seeing some dramatic changes in our hospitals and in our facilities. And we have a commitment, under our plan release, our commitment is to roll out NHI. And so definitely when we have our new budget, I believe that there will be elements in there that will allow us for the complete rollout of NHI throughout the country.
So you all are maintaining the commitment that in the new budget, there will be elements of this national rollout of NHI, but it won't be completely rolled out at that time.
Well, NHI, not even from when it was started, was a complete rollout. It was rolled out in phases,
right.
And that is going to happen again. We're going to start rolling out in Orange Walk and in the Kayo district, which are the districts that do not yet have NHI.
No, but enfolded into that is a question about these 40% cuts. You're going to reinstate those. What are you going to do?
I believe that funds have to be reemployed to give health to continue giving health under this administration the priority which it requires. And we are going to be seeing some of that in our budget.
But of course, it's a fight because the government's finances are completely maxed out and they're stretched beyond thin. And everyone is fighting for resources. Every minister and every representatives have people very much wanting them to deliver immediately. I have to ask you, Minister, are your colleagues in the cabinet jealous of you? Because you got 16 million, the Prime Minister said last year, and health is a national priority right now. Well, only you to get money?
Well, it's not for me personally. It's not for me. You know, I think, Jules, it is as it should be. I think as area representatives and as ministers, we all are representing a certain interest and a certain base. And it is part of our job to try to advocate for that base. And so whether you're the Minister of Tourism and you're representing the tourism sector, or whether you're the Minister of Infrastructure and your area of concentration is on roads and so forth, it is part of how cabinet operates. And so it is really making sure that as a government, we know what our priorities are and trying to focus as much as we can on accomplishing those. And as I said before, health is critical. You know, and this pandemic is the perfect example. It didn't matter if you had money or if you didn't have money. It didn't matter if you had a business or not. This pandemic showed us all that health, your health, is the most important thing. Without that, you have absolutely nothing. And so the fact that this government, this administration, has given health the kind of priority it does, I think speaks volume of where we want to go.
But the question stands, are your colleagues in the cabinet, some of them must grudge you naturally because they are fighting for their own resources in their ministries, and health is getting most of the very little that's left in the war chest. Is there tension in the cabinet because of this?
None at all, none at all. I think all of my colleagues understand the importance of health, and they understand the benefit it brings to their communities and to their constituencies.
Now, Minister, one of the cornerstones of the entire national health system is the KHMH. It's autonomous. We know it's a statutory board, but at the same time, it is where all these COVID cases will end up. We know you made a trip there to make a donation there because it is really the cornerstone of our health system.
Right.
But the criticism has to be made, and I think it was in the manifesto that I want to find the exact words, that one of the main pillars of our national health system is the KHMH, and it needs urgent attention from the government to find the appropriate model and solutions that will facilitate the improvements of its organizational leadership. And I keyed in on that term, organizational leadership, because when I look at the board of KHMH, which is appointed by the Minister of Health, I see that your cousin is on the board, your cousin's father-in-law is on the board, and I guess his sister-in-law is an ex-officio member, or his father-in-law's sister-in-law is the CEO and the DHS.
Has nothing to do with KHMH.
Ex-officio member of the board.
CEO.
The CEO.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
But we see the situation with your cousin and his father-in-law both being on the board. I'm saying that it looks like just family and friends. How do you answer that criticism?
Well, you know, Jules, it all depends how you look at it. Dr. Hoy is a supremely qualified doctor who brings many, many years of experience to the table. And my cousin is a successful businessman, and he brings that experience to the table. And I don't think that is any reason to take away from the value that they bring to the organization. On the contrary, I think any organization, any board wants to have a broad cross-section of people so that together they consummate, the aggregate of all of their experiences leads to better management. And I can tell you that compared to what was there before, under the previous chairperson and that board, there's a significant difference.
Is it true that the previous chairperson was making certain claims against the Ministry of Health for remuneration?
I won't say that. I will not answer that question, Jules. She knows what she did, and that's a matter for her.
But when one looks at the entire setup of the Carl Huchner and the funding it requires, you know, a lot has been made recently of the charging for PPEs, and we know that one of the promises of your government was to make those available, and we see that KHMH is charging people, and they've given their own explanation. It's a autonomously managed institution. But where do you stand on that from a political perspective, that people are being made to pay for these?
You know, Jules, unfortunately, the way the story was led was a bit misleading, because it's not really just a PPE. It's not only a suit, but it's the mask, it's the gloves, it's everything that goes along with treating COVID patients. And on average, a doctor treating a patient uses anywhere between 5 to 6 sets of PPE and equipment to actually treat each patient. And so I believe that the Prime Minister had intervened in this matter and himself had looked at this matter. And the board has come out with a press release expressing and explaining that it is not just a PPE, but it is all the components that go along that the doctors and the nurses must wear to be able to treat COVID patients. Listen, it is no secret that COVID is a burden on our economy. For every person who's intubated, it is costing the public purse about $45,000 per person. And so this is a burden on our country, and for us, it is important to get our people healthy and back on their feet.
Now, when you look at it, I know that you spoke in one interview right on the ceremonial opening. One of our reporters here asked you about the members of your team. I think you snapped and said that these are members of my team. And speak about these gentlemen, because the criticism is that, yes, they are members of your team, and they are functionaries of you from a political perspective, and now they are employed by the ministry, but they're now using vehicles that were previously used by the epidemiological unit or other functionaries within the ministry, and they're using it in their work, which a lot of their work is in politics, in the politics of Kaya North. How do you answer this?
No, that is absolutely not true. We have brought in people who are close to us and people who can help us to carry out our mandate, and that is all that we have done, and I don't make any excuse for it.
But have they been assigned vehicles?
They have not been taking any resource from anyone, and so I don't make any excuses for bringing them in.
Speak about the bureaucracy, Minister. You are new to government.
Absolutely.
Like many elected of your colleagues who are elected, only 4 of them have prior governmental experience. And you enter a scalding hot situation where, you know, we have this COVID inferno. Mm-hmm. And you don't know how to manage a bureaucracy. You know that you want to go from point A to point B. But under the rules of a bureaucracy, you need to go A to Z first, then you come back to B. Mm-hmm. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. What has that learning curve been like, and has it been frustrating for you?
It's coming from the private sector, it certainly is different. But we do understand that the public sector runs and operates under different rules and requirements. And I think previously we spoke about contracts. And that was something new for us in the private sector. We are accustomed to reaching an agreement, you sign the agreement, and you move on. In the public sector, it operates completely different. You negotiate a position, you draft a contract, you send it to the financial secretary for that office's approval. After that is completed, you send it to the contractor general for their approval. And so this is the process that is there, and we have to work within that process.
Has it been frustrating insofar as also there are certain hierarchical domains, right? Because like any organization, bureaucracy has a lot of turf. And you know, you encounter people who are like, well, this is my turf, and you can't bring so and so to do it. Have you encountered that?
Well, you know, Jules, at the ministry there is an organogram, and I think that people understand clearly their positions and what the channels of communications are. And so while there may have been one or two persons who want to step outside of what that structure is, I mean, on the whole, I think people understand and people have been following that general organogram.
Explain to me the entire process with bringing in the acting director of health services, Melissa Diaz. You praised her in the House of Representatives, but what's next in that office? Will she be confirmed as the director of health services?
Well, that is still a question out there, whether or not she wants to continue that position. I'll tell you, when we made the decision to bring in Dr. Diaz, we made that decision because of her experience on the ground and of the broad wealth of knowledge that she has, especially with COVID. We felt, and we still feel, that it is important to have somebody there who understands this virus intimately. And she certainly has been one of those persons. And I'll tell you, she has turned things around in a very dramatic way. And so, you know, I'm very proud of the work she does. I'm very proud to have her at the helm and as the acting DHS. She has done wonderful.
So, but you're saying that you don't know if she will stay?
Well, it's a matter for her to make that determination. We have to remember that Doc is also a mother, and so that she has family interests that she's also concerned about. And the job of a DHS is a daunting one. It's not an easy one. So in the final analysis, it's a matter for her to decide what her position will be.
Now, we're winding down to the end here, Minister.
Already?
It's you're having so much fun. You don't.
I think you better ask me to come back.
Indeed, but Minister, speak about the situation as regards your ministry and how the new budget is being made. We know that they're having the consultations. We know that it's an ongoing process, but at the same time, you need to have a communication with the Ministry of Finance about what your ministry needs, and then you're told that, well, you can't get that, we're broke, etc., etc. What is the thing that you are pushing hardest for to get funding for your ministry that's not there right now?
Well, I think critically for us, Jules, is having a COVID budget. That is something that did not exist before, and that is critical for us. I think it is important to understand that notwithstanding the vaccine, COVID will be with us for a while. And so it is important for us from a ministry's point of view to be able to have the facilities we need, the equipment we need, the medication we need, and the vaccinations and the testing kits that we need to be able to continue facing this problem. Perhaps we're hoping it's going to be on a lesser scale, but we know that it will continue to feature very dominantly over the next year or two, and so we want to make sure that we have identified a proper budget to deal with that scenario.
Going into this election, you are in Cayo North, which is a large part of the town. There are two issues. One, the UDP has been winning elections in Cayo since 2006, I want to say, or they won in 2003 in Cayo. Yes. So they've been winning municipal elections in Cayo since 2003. And Cayo North and Cayo Central make up the twin towns.
North, Northeast, and Central.
North, Northeast, and Central.
Constituencies.
So then, since the PUP have turned those red hills into blue.
That's right, brother.
And flipped all those, what were thought to be unbeatable UDP seats throughout the Cayo district. Will the PUP be able to flip the Cayo Town Board in a realistic view of what the history is there with Mayor Earl Trapp, his successor, Mr. August? That's the first question. And second, how will you contain the COVID situation? Something went wrong last time because 6 of you guys ended up with COVID, and very unfortunately, one man lost his life.
Yeah, you know, Jules, I have every confidence in the electorate in the Cayo district, especially our folks in Cayo North, Northeast, and Cayo Central. They saw the widespread corruption of the past government, and they spoke very decisively. And the good folks of these three constituencies are very intimate with what is happening at that town council. And I have no doubt that come the 3rd of March, you will have some surprises in that municipality.
So you're predicting a win for the PUP for the first time in 18 years?
I am predicting that you're going to have surprises on that day.
Misha, you're not predicting a win? Why Earl Trapp? I'll have to check with Earl Trapp. Okay, any final words, Minister?
Yes, absolutely. Jules, first of all, thank you. I enjoyed having this conversation. And most of all, I just want to reiterate to the Belizean public how important it is to take personal responsibility for your health, how important it is to continue adhering to the public health measures. These measures are to protect you and your loved ones. This is an ongoing fight, and we need you to continue cooperating and working along with us so that we can flatten this curve once and for all.
Thanks very much for being our first guest, Minister Shabat. I called a few people who were a little bit nervous about appearing, but you walked right into the lion's den. I'm very grateful. Thanks for coming.
Are you saying I was not your first choice?
Minister, the show should be about municipal elections, but all the municipal candidates ran. So I had to start finding my friends at the national level. And you were the first I turned to, sir.
Thank you.
So I thank you for being our first guest. And we'll take a commercial break now. We'll come back with the UDP hopeful for Mayor Arsene Picard. Stay with us.
Do you know what is the COVID-19 vaccine? The COVID-19 vaccine provides support to help your body develop immunity to the virus that causes COVID-19 without us having to get the illness. It is safe and very effective. How does the COVID-19 vaccine work? Different types of vaccines work in different ways to offer protection. But with all types of vaccine, the body is left with a supply of memory that will remember how to fight the virus in the future. It typically takes a few weeks for the body to produce the antibodies after the vaccination. Types of vaccines. Currently, there are different types of vaccines. Each type of vaccine prompts our bodies to recognize and protect us from the virus that causes COVID-19. None of these vaccines can give you COVID-19. Some of the vaccines are Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Both are RNA types, part of the virus genetic code. They both need 2 doses. Sputnik V and AstraZeneca, both are viral type, genetic modified virus. They both need 2 doses. Do I still need to practice safety measures after being vaccinated? Yes. You need to continue wearing your mask, washing hands, and practicing physical social distance. The vaccine reduces the severity of the COVID-19 infection. There is also evidence that the vaccine reduces transmission of the COVID-19 virus.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Full-Tech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Full-Tech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Welcome back to Uncut, our premiere edition, and we're here with our second guest of the night, UDP candidate for Mayor Arsene Picard. He used to be a colleague of mine, maybe will be in the future soon. He used to be a colleague of mine as a journalist, and so we would often sit like this together at press conferences, but now we're on the other side of the table because Arsene has switched hats. He was a journalist and an impresario, I believe these people who do music and drama and entertainment are called. He was a journalist and impresario, and now he is in politics as a UDP candidate for mayor. Arsene, thanks for being my guest. My first uncut question is, why you gonna do this, man? You lose. UDP up on the downswing right now. Why are you going to waste your good name if you go mess with the UDP? How do you answer that tough question?
Your preamble is misguided.
Tell me.
First of all, it has been my mission to be in politics from since 2000 when I graduated sixth form at SJC Junior College. But I understood that I had to understand what politics is, the inner and outer dynamics of politics, whether it be in a party or as a journalist looking from outside into politics. I had to get insights as to the broad picture that politics is. And basically, for a lot of young people out there, politics basically boils down to decision making, and that's what it is. And so my politics has been one that encompasses a lot of advocacy work in terms of working with youths in the communities of Southside Belize City, from since I was in high school at SJC all the way to when I became a professional broadcaster and then into broadcast journalism. And so I have been working with youths and communities since then. Why the UDP? Well, once it was that I had decided that this was the time for me to embark on this journey in politics, I had to look around for a viable option. And once it was that I had a conversation with the then Secretary General of the UDP, Ms. Pearl Stewart, and she was welcoming to my ideas and to my ambitions, and she spoke to the core values of the party, I decided that the core values of the party is something that I want to live up to. Hence the reason my entrance into politics.
Now, Arsene, that immediately begs the question. I understand that you've had it as an aspiration and you've explained why you chose the UDP. But two things arise. One, you are not and you know, you shouldn't, people are not trapped by who their parents are, but your father was a very ranking PUP. Am I right?
Yes,
you have PUP in your DNA.
Not necessarily the DNA, but in the family, yes.
Explain to me if that was a consideration.
My dad told me when I graduated from sixth form that, son, if you don't have money, no get into politics. Straight out.
For those who don't know,
his name is former PUP minister in Dangriga, David McCoy.
A PUP legend of the South.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
And so he told me that. And so I decided to do the work. Do the work and get the information. I am always big on research, so I had to see how it is. He came to that conclusion that if you don't have money, no get into politics. And once it was that times change and I found a way around that, I said, well, the old boy may have been right back then, but times have changed since then, and so it's just to be more strategic. No, I still don't have any money, but I do with the little that I have. I try to help as many people as I can within reason.
Okay, now, Arsene, explain to me, you know, right now, what's the reaction you're getting out there? And I know that you'll keep it real. You know, UDP's name in the city is not good in Port Loyola. It's not good, that's my experience. In a lot of constituencies, people feel very that the UDP, being in office all those years, like pick stock, and let them down, and voters rejected them. This happened just 3 months ago. What is the vibe that you are getting now? I can't imagine that it has seriously changed after 12 years of accumulated hard feelings, that it might change in just a few months.
You would know as well as me and other journalists out there that municipal elections and general elections are two different beasts, if you can call it that. And so we are in our 6th constituency, which is Lake Independence, canvassing the area. We did Queen Square, we did Alberts, we did Messop, we did Pickstock. And the reception has been heartwarming, to say the most. Residents have expressed to us their discontent with the way things were in the past. But what they have said to us is that with a slate of young professionals or middle-aged young professionals, that they get a sense of inspiration and hope now to see some new faces who are interested in politics and to change, new faces that are, who want to change the status quo in politics. And so it can be business as usual, and so we come with fresh, new ideas to the table, some of which might be not so popular with other people because of the way how traditional politics in Belize has been run. But nonetheless, politics, as with everything else, is a living thing. It's not static. And so we have to change with the times and adapt and find meaningful solutions to serve the residents of this city.
In the last election, only 50% of the voters in Belize City came out. This is the last municipal election. I think we have the graphic in there, guys. For the voter turnout in 2018, Belize City had the lowest turnout, and that should have been a sign to the UDP that, you know, all these constituencies that they controlled weren't really feeling the love for UDP at that time. The turnout was so poor. And in the end, the PUP won with 10,578 votes, while the PUP won with 10,578, UDP 1,000 less. Explain to me, how do you overcome that 1,000 vote margin when you don't have the ministers? Because the last time the UDP had the ministers of the Prime Minister in Queen Square, he had the Minister of Housing in Mesopotamia, he had the Minister of Education in the Collet constituency, the Minister of Social Development, Human Development, sorry, in the Port Leola, and they still lost. You don't have any of that now, so it follows you're going to lose more.
Politics is a game of numbers, but it's also a game of strategy. And so over the last 15 years, if you really follow up politics, you would see that if you are where if you have a strategy that is impacting and reaching out to the majority of your populace, you would find that your influence would be greater. And so without giving away too much, our strategy is fourfold. We are doing online text messaging, house to house, and of course, mobile text messaging as well to reach out to residents of this city. The traditional way of...
You mean like WhatsApp? Mobile, because you said text messaging?
Yes. So we use several platforms.
Yeah.
We use several platforms to engage the residents of the city to ensure that our messaging across all those platforms are consistent. And so once it is that we are engaging citizens and we are getting the views that we want, because in the November general elections, you would know the analysis of that, you would know that the current administration was top heavy on social media. And so they edged us out by that alone. 70% of the day, people are on their devices, not watching television, on their devices. And so if that is where our residents are and the populace and the citizens of this city are, that is where we need to meet them, apart from doing the traditional politicking from house to house. And so we have engaged those different platforms to maximize our reach on individuals. Now you talk about a loss in the general elections in November. The people spoke. Our party understands that we need to rebuild. And so, given that reality, this is the reason why you see the UDP 11 is a new slate with the coming back also of Dr. Alain Gonzalez, who is the only person on our slate who has been a previous councillor. Everybody else are new faces to politics with new ideas, new vision, and come with that energy to drive local economic development for Belize City, the businesses, and the residents.
Let me ask you a serious existential question. While you expect to win and you're working for it, if you don't win, you return to journalism, you return to your work as an impresario in various fields, ads production, various creative outlets. But then you will have shown your true colors, and then everybody will say, but Arsene, you can ask me that question, you're a UDP. Have you weighed this existential or career tightrope that you're walking?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah?
Yes, everything that I have done over the past 2 years and a half has been deliberate. And so it was a surgical move to ensure that once it was that I arrive where I am today, that there would have been no turning back. Now, as a professional, in terms of being a journalist, I have always made sure that in every press conferences, my questions are objective and fair to the interviewee.
You believe
that will not change.
Objectivity exists?
Yes, it does.
Well, we are cut from a different cloth, because I don't
know.
believe it exists as a human possibility.
It is.
But that's a broader conceptual argument.
It is for me, Jules, because the way how I grew up to always want to find the truth. And in trying to find the truth, I understand that you have to look at a wide range of perspectives. So it's not only my perspective and your perspective. We have to get perspectives from different individuals.
It's also my truth and your truth.
And so while I might concede to that somewhat, the reality of the matter is that trying to be unbiased in media in Belize will forever be a hard thing, because every media houses come with their own bias and serve their own agenda. So bias does exist.
Explain to me your complicated relationship with two things. With the animal called the UDP, and I'll explain that, and with the zinc fence. Let me start with the UDP. The UDP is a political machine. You are not native to that machine. You come from outside that machine. And you are trying to ride this big, bucking bronco. That's the UDP. That is just literally, not to mix analogies, a bull in a china shop. They just want to knock down things and make havoc. That's how political parties exist. They are big machines of chaos. And you come here as a gentleman and say, I know, man, I ride this good. You can't control that machine, because that has parts that you don't understand. So how are you coming to terms with this UDP, this natural instinct to search and destroy? That's number one. Number two, how do you untangle this complicated relationship, I imagine, with the zinc fence? And I'm being presumptuous, because while you're from back at the zinc, you'd put in work different, I want to say the 90s.
Since I was 17.
Since you were 17. And let's say that was 20 odd years ago, right? So you are native to that, but also the current mayor, his wife is the business manager from Mandala. He in a family. Speak about those two complicated relationships, both with the UDP and with the zinc fence.
I believe that our party is at a point where we're restructuring the way we do business. And so under the leadership of our party leader, Patrick Faber, I am certain that he is open to different styles of leadership. My style of leadership is totally different, Jules, because while it is that I might be a gentleman, I am very strong-headed about what I want and the direction that I want to take. And I think great leaders are the ones who understand their limitations and try to build on those limitations and maximize on the strengths of individuals around them. And so, while it is that I might be a gentleman, I bring my own swag and I know how to finesse things to make sure that it runs in my way.
But you can't control the UDP.
No, sir, I definitely can't. And hence the reason why consultation and communication is key. In this industry called media, some 20 odd years I have learned that communication is key. And once it is that you communicate properly, openly, and clearly what your position is, then I think everything else is fair game after that. And so if you don't get your way by consensus, you basically have to suck it up and move on, or probably try to find a more creative way around that. In terms of my relationship with the Cremandala organization, I've been working there since I was 17. I started when I was in third form. I left the organization for a couple of years and then I came back. But in my years at Cremandala, the organization has always afforded me an opportunity to flex my wings. They never placed any kind of limitations on me. Even while working there and they're perceived to be a PUP organization or they back the People's United Party, not once did anybody from management or from staff actually come to me to try to persuade me in the ways of supporting the People's United Party. Get that straight out of the way. In terms of my relationship, no. The board of directors have been gracious enough to allow me time off from work to deal with my political aspirations. And for that, I'm very respectful and I'm very thankful. And so, while it is that a lot of people might be talking out the road about why Arsene me a PUP, I jump ship and gone the UDP, I was never a PUP any at all. And so I've always kept my political preference to myself, but now I am considered a politically exposed person, and with that, I have no qualms.
Now, you have taken, why I said gentleman, because you have taken this tack that you will not talk about those who are currently in City Hall, the PUP Council, who many can argue, I'm sure they will blame COVID, have been an abject failure. COVID happened, and that's real. That happened to Dean Barrow's government, that happened to local government. It sent all governments all over the world into chaos. But have you begun to rethink that strategy when you are seeing some of the stuff that's happening in City Hall?
In terms of what? You have to be specific.
Are you rethinking that strategy in terms of saying you have to have some element of your campaign has to be negative?
No, none at all. None at all. I believe that people will speak to what the current administration at City Hall did or has not done for them over the last 2 years and 10 months going. And so it has never been my thing to offer anybody free promotion any at all. I am in sales and marketing as well, and the less I can speak about my adversaries, the better it is for me and my team, because we just want to get our message across. Let the people speak to what they did or didn't do.
How hard has it been communicating that to the UDP, which is a party that when it's in opposition, it thrives on negativity?
I have had no pushback from anybody within the party. There has been nobody who has called me and said that, well, boy, you know, you have to talk about this and talk about that. As I said, Jules, one big part of marketing has to do about your messaging. If you will waste your time and resource speaking about what somebody else did or did not do, we know in this business that any kind of advertisement or any kind of blah you give somebody is publicity nonetheless. I am not giving them that any at all. And so the people will speak to that. And we've had no pushback any at all. Actually, our campaign manager, once it was that he came on board, told us that's not for us to do any at all. And so while he told us that, we were already of that view already. And so we just continue selling our narrative and our story to the Belizean people in Belize City, and to have them see that there is hope yet that will come to City Hall.
Are you prepared, finally, are you prepared to distance yourself? We see a lot of UDP's former ministers are being exposed, or there are allegations against them. We know that the DPP has confirmed that the file for Rene Montero has gone to her office. I know you're not in national leadership, but you're seeking office as a UDP. Are you prepared to speak out against wrongdoing that may have happened during the term of the last government?
Everything in time with reason.
You didn't answer my question.
Everything in time with reason.
Dude, this is not church class. What do you mean?
It's not. The truth of the matter is, individuals who may or may not have done things that are considered wrong in the past, they will have to speak to that, and I can't speak to that for them. But as it relates to...
Are you prepared to stand against it?
If there is credible evidence, yes, I am. And the credible evidence will come in a court of law and not any kind of allegation that is being spewed in the public arena. And so if it's not from the court, good sir, I can't stand behind that any at all.
But Arsene, you realize that you are sounding a lot like those politicians that you and I have stood on the other side of, just the shake we had when all of them above and they hide behind, well, just because it's wrong doesn't mean it's illegal and all these things.
No, wrong the wrong.
Wrong the wrong.
Wrong the wrong.
Wrong the wrong.
But please provide the evidence.
But I want, it's not a show about that, but I'm saying that, do you accept that as a UDP official now, which you are running for the UDP, there is a place called behind the curtain. When you go behind the curtain, that's not nice in terms of what happens behind the curtain of a political party. It's always a bloody, it's like you're going into a butcher shop at the back there. Do you know that by signing up with a major mass party, you have signed on for this sort of thing?
Jules, I have considered everything that needs to be considered. I consulted with my family, I consulted with my mother, I consulted with my wife and my advisors. And I believe that this is the time for me to enter the political arena. There is no doubt that I am willing to face anything that comes with political parties, whether it be the inner party dynamic or how it is that political parties and politicians are perceived. All I know what I have is my genuine, authentic self to offer to to residents in Belize City. And I hope that that would be enough, coupled with the different ideas that we have that we want to implement when it is that we're elected on March 3rd.
If you had to, you lost by, the UDP lost, finally the UDP lost by 1,000 votes last time. How much are you all, if you say you're going to win, how much are you all going to win by?
I honestly have no answer for that question, but we have considered it, but I think giving out that information would prompt our adversaries to beef up their machinery, so to speak. But I will say this much, that when it is that the UDP 11 are campaigning in different constituencies, it is only myself as the mayoral candidate and my councillor candidates. We have no campaigners, because the idea is to reach the Belize City residents and to speak to them one-on-one, take the notes, walk the streets, see what they are seeing and to take note of it, and to make a commitment to them that once it is they give us that chance and they make that pledge to us, come after March 3rd, we will be prioritizing their concerns and to ensure that we deal with them in a timely and practical manner.
If you are to win, would you see yourself someday seeking national office?
When that time comes around, I'll have to answer that question. But for now, we're focusing on becoming the next Belize City Council administrators.
This has been Uncut. I want to thank Arsene Picard for being on our first premiere edition. Thanks so much to viewers for joining us. We'll be back here next week at 8 p.m. We want to thank our sponsors, and those include, forgive me if I have to dig for it, but those sponsors certainly include McNabb Visual Design for the backdrop, It also includes Slingshot for the partition, and the other sponsors, please let me read them because we value them so much, and Arsene, you know this part is so important. Full Tech Systems, Belize Medical Associates, Price Premier Products, the Ministry of Health, and again, McNabb Design and Publishing. Thanks so much to everyone. Please join me back here next week for another edition of Uncut, where the whole thing will be streamed on Facebook. My apologies for those to whom we came on late. And we'll see you back here 1 week from tonight. Thanks so much.